What's up everyone, in this video I'll be doing a review of the Zhilong Mini 4x4, also formerly known as the YJ Zhisu 4x4. This puzzle comes in stickerless with pretty nice shades, and at the cubicle you can buy for $12, a bit less if you use the code CM, but half the time I check it, it's on sale for $9 on the cubicle, which is quite a steal in my opinion for such a good puzzle. Out of the box, this puzzle was a bit too fast for me and a bit too loose. The corner cutting was good, but it really didn't feel too stable. Finding the correct tension on this puzzle was quite hard. Going too tight makes this puzzle perform quite badly, but going too loose makes it too unstable. I still think you should go pretty tight on this puzzle, and here's my tensions, which is relatively tight in my opinion. For the speed, it was still a bit too fast, so I used a bit of lube go speedy to slow it down. I didn't have too fancy of a setup, I just put a bit of lube here and here, and that seemed to slow down the layers a little bit, which made it pretty good. Now, here's the result. The turning is quite smooth and pretty crunchy. When set up, the outer layers and inner layers are both controllable, and neither are too slow. Even though this cube is quite cheap, the turning and its feel just doesn't feel cheap at all. It's not too light, and each of the turns have substance in them. If this wasn't a budget cube, I would 100% believe this was actually a flagship cube. Corner cutting on this puzzle is quite excellent, matching other cubes. For regular, it can go almost 45. 45 if you have it a bit looser, and reverse could go over half a piece. Inner is also really good. Middle layers aren't as good, but you don't do these moves too often. Even with the good corner cutting, there are a good amount of lockups on this puzzle. When I turn, I have to turn decently cautiously because, first off, there are some lockups that can happen. If you have too extreme corner cuts, of course, it's not going to be able to do it. In addition, this thing actually pops a lot more than other cubes. It's still pretty rare to the point where it's not a huge issue. In other 4x4s, I think I pop 1 in 150 solves, but this one I might pop 1 in 40 solves or so. Again, not the hugest issue, but it does happen more frequently than other puzzles. As for more major lockups, as I mentioned before, this puzzle is a bit more unstable, so it does happen more often than other 4x4s, which is also why this puzzle pops a lot more. Usually those major lockups are pretty easy to fix, but sometimes they do result in a pop, which is pretty annoying. This puzzle is also magnetic, so let's talk about the magnets. The outer layers have pretty weak magnets, and then the inner layers have a bit stronger magnets. I would say the magnet strengths are pretty similar to the Zhisu WRM, with the weaker outers and stronger inners, but I think these strengths are pretty much perfect, not too weak or strong. The inner, stronger magnets are good for stability during 2x3 stage, and the weaker outer layers allow for pretty smooth 2x3 stage as well. Now let's talk about the biggest thing about this puzzle, which is its size. From the camera right now, it might not look too small, but this thing's actually 56mm, I'm pretty sure. So how does this compare with other cubes? Here's the Zhisu GTS 2M, which I think is the world record cube right now. This thing's, I think, a bit under 62mm, so as you can see, a huge difference. Modern 4x4s like the MGC are 60mm, which is a bit smaller than the Zhisu GTS, but still you can tell there's still a pretty big difference here. Then the smallest 4x4 flagship was the WRM, and as you can see there's still a huge difference between them. And here are all the 4x4s side by side. As you can see, the right three are pretty similar, but this one stands out quite a bit. Here's an MGC square one, and even this one is taller than the 4x4. And here's my main 2x3, which I think is 55.5mm, which is just a hair smaller than this. As different as it might feel from other 4x4s, in my experience, I think this size is actually a plus. In the beginning, I was quite skeptical. I was really used to using 60mm 4x4s, and this one was way smaller. I thought maybe the optimal 4x4 size is like 58 or 59, but definitely not 56. I still think that kind of, but 56mm is still a great size for 4x4. Even for me, and I don't have the smallest hands. The reason why I like this smaller size is because I think finger tricks is really easy to do on this puzzle. Some special finger tricks like U2s are a bit hard when the cubes are a bit bigger. And even fancier ones like this are harder because there's so much length. But with this cube, all those finger tricks just feel really easy. I feel like that's just because it's closer to a 2x3 size. Even though the outer layers aren't proportional to a 2x3, the size itself is pretty similar, which allows me to do a lot of 2x3 finger tricks on this puzzle quite easily. If you guys haven't tried this puzzle, I'm pretty sure a lot of you are still skeptical, but I guarantee you after a few solves, this will actually feel pretty normal to you. At this point, all these other 4x4s, I consider actually large 4x4s. Even though they're standard sizes, I've been using this so long that this feels standard to me, and these are too big for me. And whenever I solve on these, I have some hard time doing some finger tricks that I think are much easier on this cube. So what are the cons of the small size? One I've thought about is slices. Because these inner layers are much smaller because of the smaller size of the whole cube, it might be harder to do slice moves. But from my experience, that's actually not true. You're not using your whole finger to do a slice move, which means that even if the slice is pretty small, it still very doable. Maybe a tiny bit harder, but it's still really, really doable to do slice moves. So PLO parity is not a huge problem at all. And also my method uses quite a bit of slice moves, and I also don't have a huge problem with those. One con of the sides that actually affected me though was cube drops. I noticed with the Zhilong Mini, I actually drop it quite often compared to other 404s. And other 404s, I rarely ever drop the cube during my solve. I'm pretty sure I never actually did that, but with the Mini cube, I actually have a few times. This is not a huge issue. I'm not dropping it multiple times every solve. It's maybe like once every 20 solves. When turning really fast, it might be hard to control, and its smaller size might get it to slip. However, after using this cube for a long time, I can say that the slipping problem has pretty much gone away almost completely. So if you get used to it, it shouldn't be a huge problem. So overall, do I recommend this puzzle? Absolutely. For its price being $12 and sometimes under $10, I think it's just insane value you're getting out of this cube. It's magnetic, it has great speed, and the feeling is not cheap at all, and it feels just like a flagship 4x4. When it comes to value, this puzzle is definitely top notch. Admittedly, I think the performance is a bit worse than other 4x4 flagships, so if you want a good 4x4 just by performance, this maybe isn't the one, just because of some instability problems and popping issues. However, I still think it's worth a try for its cheap price. I think most people down this cube is probably going to be because of its size. But like I said before, I think the size is actually not a bad thing, but actually a good thing for most solvers. The turning feels really, really similar to geometry, so finger tricks are actually a lot easier. And especially if you have small hands, this is actually just the perfect cube for you. Even though I think this cube performs a tiny bit worse than my other cubes, I still main this cube over those. I think the smaller size, the good turning, and how easy it is to do finger tricks allows me to get better times than my other 4x4s, even though this one performs a bit worse. So yeah, at the end of the day, I 100% recommend this cube. So that's it on this review. Make sure to pick this up. This thing is amazing for its price. I'm really glad YG put this puzzle out there. They've been making a ton of great budget cubes, and this one is definitely one of those. So yeah, thank you for watching, and hopefully this video was informative. Gotta be joking, man. 30 flat?